World War I from 1914 to 1918 marked a turning point in the history of warfare. The industrial age brought with it an array of new weapons, including machine guns, poison gas, aircraft, and most notably the tank. The tank was a revolutionary response to the horrors of trench warfare, designed to break the stalemate on the Western Front and to restore mobility to a battlefield dominated by static defences. Though rudimentary and experimental in their early forms, tanks laid the foundation for armoured warfare as we know it today. This article explores the origins, development, deployment and legacy of tanks in World War I. By late 1914, the Western Front had devolved into a vast network of trenches stretching from the North Sea to the Swiss border. The firepower of modern rifles, machine guns and artillery rendered frontal assaults suicidal. Soldiers were pinned down in their trenches, unable to advance more than a few hundred yards without incurring catastrophic casualties. Commanders urgently sought a means to break through enemy lines, cross barbed wire and withstand machine gun fire. And the solution eventually emerged in the form of the armoured fighting vehicle. The idea of an armoured vehicle was not entirely new. As early as the 15th century, Leonardo da Vinci sketched designs for armoured war machines. However, it wasn't until the internal combustion engine and the development of caterpillar tracks, originally designed for agricultural tractors, that such machines became feasible. In Britain, a group of engineers and military officers began working on the idea under great secrecy. The Landships Committee, formed in 1915 under the direction of Winston Churchill, then First Lord of the Admiralty, oversaw the development of the first prototype. To maintain secrecy, the new machines were called tanks, suggesting they were water storage containers being shipped to the front. The first operational tank in history, the British Mark I, made its debut on September 15, 1916, during the Battle of the Somme. These early tanks were slow, mechanically unreliable and difficult to operate. They weighed around 28 tons, were armed with either two 6-pounder naval guns and machine guns, male versions, or solely machine guns, female versions, and moved at a maximum speed of 3.7 miles per hour. Despite these limitations, the Mark I had a profound psychological impact on both sides. The appearance of armoured vehicles crushing barbed wire and crossing trenches gave Allied troops a morale boost and instilled fear in German soldiers who had never seen such machines. Subsequent versions of the British tank, improved upon the Mark I to Mark II and Mark III, were primarily used for training or in limited combat roles. Mark IV, introduced in 1917, was more robust and featured better armour and mechanical reliability. It saw heavy action in battles such as Messines and Cambrai. Mark V, launched in 1918, marked a significant advancement. It had a more powerful engine, a single driver control system and improved tracks. Capable of better battlefield performance, it was used extensively during the 100 Days Offensive that helped end the war. The British introduced a gender system for their tanks. Male tanks had heavier armaments, typically two 6-pounder guns and machine guns, and were designed to engage fortified positions. Female tanks were equipped with multiple machine guns for use against infantry. Eventually, hermaphrodite tanks were developed, which combined male and female characteristics in one unit. The French were the second nation to develop tanks, beginning with the Schneider CA-1 in 1917. Smaller and lighter than its British counterparts, the Schneider was armed with a short 75mm howitzer and two machine guns. Its short chassis and poor trench crossing ability made it less effective on the Western Front, but it represented a vital step in tank development. The Germans were initially skeptical of the tank's potential and failed to invest significantly in armoured warfare during most of the war. When they finally began developing their own tanks, they were already far behind. Germany's only operational tank during the war was the A7V, introduced in 1918. It was a massive boxy vehicle weighing around 30 tons, crewed by up to 18 men. Armed with a 57mm cannon and multiple machine guns, it had poor mobility and suffered from mechanical problems. Only 20 were built. German reliance remained largely on anti-tank tactics, captured Allied tanks and artillery. The first tank attack occurred during the latter stages of the Battle of the Somme. Of the 49 tanks deployed, only 32 reached the front lines, and just a few made significant advances. Nonetheless, the experiment proved that tanks had potential, prompting further investment. Despite their impact, World War I tanks were plagued by numerous issues. Mechanical reliability. Early tanks frequently broke down or became stuck. Speed and maneuverability. Most tanks moved slower than a walking soldier and were hard to turn or reverse. Crew conditions. The interior was hot, cramped and filled with fumes, causing heat exhaustion and carbon monoxide poisoning. Limited vision. Poor visibility made it difficult for crews to navigate or engage targets effectively. These limitations meant that tanks could not yet replace traditional forces, but were instead best used in combined arms operations. The tank's debut in World War I changed military thinking forever. Though they were far from perfect, tanks proved that armoured vehicles could play a vital role in breaching enemy defences and restoring mobility to the battlefield. Interwar military theorists such as J.F.C. Fuller, Heinz Guderian and Charles de Gaulle studied the tank's potential. Their ideas helped shape the doctrines of Blitzkrieg, which Germany would later unleash with devastating effect during World War II. The production and deployment of tanks illustrated the increasing importance of industrial capacity in modern warfare. Nations realized that victory could hinge on the ability to mass-produce effective weapons. Tanks also had a significant psychological effect on soldiers and commanders. They introduced a new dimension to warfare, one that emphasized mobility, protection and firepower, and helped erode the dominance of static trench systems. The tanks of World War I were primitive, lumbering machines compared to the armoured vehicles of today, but they marked the beginning of a new era in military history. From the British Mark I to the French Renault FT, these early tanks represented humanity's first attempt to harness industrial technology to solve the deadly impasse of trench warfare. Though their role was limited in the First World War, the tank's potential was unmistakable. The lessons learned on the muddy fields of the Western Front would shape the strategies and machines of World War II and beyond. In this way, the steel monsters of the Great War forever changed how wars are fought. Please like and subscribe to our channel for more historical content.